The night I fought what people in my village would call a spirit, I was alone in the forest, and I truly believed I would not return home alive because something was walking behind me, calling my name in my own voice, and there was no human being anywhere near me. My name is Kofi, and I grew up in a farming village near a thick forest in West Africa where the trees are tall, the ground is dark and rich, and the elders always say that the land gives life but also demands respect. I am not a hunter or a warrior, and I am not a man who looks for trouble, but that year the rains were poor and our crops were weak, and we needed better soil if our families were going to eat well the next season. The elders spoke about fertile land near a stream that lay deeper in the forest, but most people refused to go because strange things had happened there before, including hunters losing their way and returning confused, frightened, or sometimes not returning at all. I did not believe the stories fully because I thought fear can grow larger than truth when people repeat it too many times, so I decided I would go and see the land for myself. Before I left, an old woman named Mama Esi called me to sit beside her outside her hut, and she held my wrist firmly and told me that if I heard my name called from behind while I was alone in the forest, I must not answer or turn around because not every voice belongs to a person. I wanted to smile at her warning, but her eyes were serious and steady, and instead of arguing I accepted the small leather charm she tied around my wrist, even though I believed my safety would come from my own clear thinking rather than from beads and leather. The first part of my walk into the forest felt normal, and the sun passed through the leaves while insects buzzed and birds called out above me, but as I walked deeper the air felt heavy and still, and the sound of birds slowly faded until the silence pressed against my ears in a way that made me notice my own breathing. I reached the stream after more than an hour, and the soil there was dark, soft, and perfect for planting, so I marked a nearby tree with my cutlass to show where I had been, feeling proud that I had proven the fear of others wrong. That was when I heard my name spoken softly behind me, and the voice sounded close enough that I felt breath at my neck even though I had heard no footsteps approach me. The first time it spoke, I froze completely because no one from my village would follow me quietly that far without greeting me, and when the voice repeated my name again, closer and clearer, I remembered Mama Esi's warning and felt fear rise slowly from my stomach to my chest. Every part of me wanted to turn around and answer, because when someone calls your name it feels natural to respond, but I forced myself to stay still and then began walking forward toward the path I had used earlier, pretending I had heard nothing. As I walked, I heard movement behind me that did not sound like normal steps, because it was uneven and light yet too close to be wind, and then I heard my own voice speak from behind me, telling me to wait. The sound of my own voice coming from somewhere outside my body caused real fear to settle into my bones, because it meant that whatever was there understood me in a way that was not normal. I began to run without thinking, and branches caught my arms while dry leaves slipped under my feet, and the path that had seemed clear before now looked twisted and unfamiliar as if the forest had shifted its shape. After running for some time, I reached a small open space between trees where the light was enough to see clearly, and that was when I saw a shape standing between two trunks that did not look like a solid human body but also did not look like mist. The shape was tall and thin, and it seemed to move without stepping, and though I could not see clear eyes or a mouth, I felt strongly that it was looking directly at me. I could not move at first, and my heart beat so hard that I thought I might faint, but then I heard a voice inside my head that did not pass through my ears, and it told me that I should not be there. I answered out loud even though my voice shook, saying that I had come only for soil and had no wish to cause harm, and as I spoke the shape moved closer without touching the ground. The air around me grew cold, and suddenly I began to see images that felt real even though they were not happening, because I saw my mother crying beside a broken farm, I saw flames burning our crops, and I saw myself lying still on the ground near the stream. The fear those images caused felt stronger than any physical attack, and I realized that whatever stood before me was trying to break my mind rather than strike my body. I dropped to my knees because the images were heavy and painful, and for a moment I believed them, but then my hand pressed against the leather charm tied to my wrist, and that small object reminded me of my home, my people, and the simple truth that fear can lie. I closed my eyes and spoke slowly, saying that if the being wanted me gone, it should face me without false visions, and when I opened my eyes again, the burning farms and crying faces had vanished. The shape in front of me seemed less steady than before, and it shifted like smoke disturbed by wind, and I understood then that the fear inside me was feeding its strength. I forced myself to stand even though my legs trembled, and I said that it could not touch me if I did not give it power through fear, and when I stepped forward instead of backward, the cold pressure in the air weakened. The shape rushed toward me suddenly, and though I knew my cutlass could not cut smoke, I swung it firmly through the air in front of me as a sign that I would not kneel again. The blade passed through without resistance, but the shape pulled back slightly as if my refusal mattered more than the metal itself. I told it that my people had lived beside the forest for many generations and that we would not take more than we needed, and I promised that we would not cut beyond the stream or destroy what gave us life. There was a long silence after I spoke, and during that silence I felt washed not with anger but with judgment, as if something was weighing my words carefully. Slowly, the shape began to thin and break apart like smoke fading into open air, and the voice inside my head said that I was not like the others who ran or begged without thought. Before it vanished completely, it told me to return with respect, and then the forest sounds came back all at once, including birds, insects, and wind through leaves, as if nothing had happened. I stood there shaking, not because I had won a battle with strength, but because I had survived something that could have destroyed my mind if I had surrendered to fear. The path home appeared clear again, and I walked back slowly, holding on to the steady rhythm of my breathing until I reached the edge of the village. When the people saw me, they knew something serious had taken place because my clothes were torn and my face showed the weight of what I had experienced. I told them everything in simple words, explaining that I had not fought a monster with claws but had faced a force that used fear as its weapon, and I told them that the forest is not empty land waiting to be conquered but a place with boundaries that must be honored. After that day, we farmed near the stream but never beyond it, and we left a part of the forest untouched as a sign that we understood their limits. Nothing strange happened again, and no one else reported hearing voices or losing their way in that area. I do not claim that everyone will believe my story, and I do not argue with those who say fear can create visions, because perhaps fear and spirit are not so different in how they move through a man's mind. What I know is this: on that night in the forest, something tested me, and I returned alive not because I was the strongest man in the village, but because I chose not to let fear command me. That is the full truth of the night I walked into the forest seeking soil for my family and came face to face with what many would call a spirit, and it is a truth I carry with me every time I stand at the edge of the trees and feel the quiet watching from within. If you were Kofi, would you enter the forest or run away? Tell me in the comments.